You're listening to the Spark Your Light podcast, episode number 262, Why You Need to Ditch the Backup Plan. This episode is for you if there's a big dream that is on your heart that you're pursuing, but you keep going back to this backup plan. Just in case it doesn't work out, just in case you fail, you feel like it's responsible. And that's the best way to be thinking. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you why that is not the most helpful mindset and the mindset I recommend instead. This episode is sponsored by SYL. So this episode is inspired by myself, as all my episodes are. I recently experienced a time where I found myself relying on a backup plan. I was planning to fail so that if I failed, one, I wouldn't be let down, which is so ironic because it's about my book, and the book I'm writing is about getting your hopes up. So it's so funny because I was trying to not get my hopes up. Oh my gosh, how crazy. And the other reason is because I want it to be successful. And so I felt like it was responsible to have a backup plan, because if plan A doesn't work, then I'm not just going to give up. So in a sense, I thought it was very resilient of me, very committed of me to come up with some backup plans. And so plan A for me, for the book, is that I would like to land a traditional publishing deal. But what I found myself doing is in conversations with friends saying things like, but if I can't get a traditional publishing deal, and then I would talk about my backup plans. And one day I was talking to one of my friends and I heard myself say that. And I was like, you know what? There is no can't. There is no can't. Because if my goal is to get a traditional publishing deal, and I am 100% committed to that, and I take full responsibility for that, then I will get there. Now, you might say, but Jacqueline, what if every publisher rejects your book? Great. I'm going to find out why they're rejecting my book. What needs to be different? And most of the time, it's not your idea sucks, because that's one thing. But a lot of the time, it's, well, your platform isn't big enough, or the angle for how you're going to market the book isn't something we think will sell well, or, there's so many reasons to why a publisher may not acquire a certain title right now. And a lot of those reasons are in my control. Okay, so if I start to learn more about the industry and learn that maybe my podcast needs to have, X number of listeners, great. Now that's going to be my number one goal, that I'm going to build an audience of this number of listeners to get that attention. Or maybe we really want to approach it from a different lens. We really want to target it only to women. I think that this book is something that can help both genders. And so even though most of my audience is women, most of the people listening to this podcast are women. We also have male listeners. And so it is something that is important to me to market the book in a way that aligns with my vision. But for example, if that's the case, then great, we'll market it to women, because that's something I'm really passionate about. And so these are just examples of maybe possible reasons why my book is not getting acquired. And let's say it takes me 10 years. I love to use the 10 years example because I think most people are pretty not serious about being 100% committed. They're halfway committed. They say they're 100% committed, but if I ask them, okay, so if that takes you 10 years to achieve, are you still going to be trying? 10 years goes by and you haven't even done it yet. Are you still trying? And it's okay if the answer is no. That's not the thing that you have a strong why for. I just talked about that in the last episode. But if it's something that you truly believe in and that is important to you, then it will take 10 years or more. And if it doesn't, if it happens to come quicker, if it happens to come in 2 years, that's amazing. But you have to be willing for it to take 10 years. And so with my book, I realized that I don't need a backup plan, because if it takes 10 years, I'm still going to keep tweaking the proposal, keep building relationships and pitching it, because that's the route I want to go. That's the route that feels aligned to me. That's the route that sparks my light for various reasons. It's something that I have a strong why behind. And because of that, there's no can't, which means I need to ditch the backup plan. Now, what I wanted to highlight in this episode is the reasons that we create a backup plan and why those reasons aren't actually valid. So, as I mentioned earlier, I created a backup plan, number one, because I was afraid of being let down. And like I said, this is so ironic because the book is about not getting your hopes up and how so many people are afraid to get their hopes up because they're afraid of disappointment. And the book is a guide to optimism and why you should get your hopes up. And I was actually not getting my hopes up, which is just the craziest thing in the entire world. Isn't it funny how they always say the plumber has a leaky sink? Sometimes the things that we know in our heart that we're really passionate about, we don't even follow because we're human. And I think the scariest part is I didn't even realize I was doing it. It's not like I thought to myself, I'm being a hypocrite and I'm not going to get my hopes up, but I'm writing a book about getting your hopes up. It didn't occur to me once. It was totally unconscious. So that's something to be aware of, that it can really be sneaky, that you're trying to protect yourself from disappointment. And that's why you're making a backup plan. Now, why is this unhelpful? The first reason is because you're going to be disappointed either way. So if it's what you want, then if you don't get the thing you want, you're going to be disappointed. And you're actually going to feel worse because you're going to feel negative and just kind of, you know, that feeling you get when you don't let yourself get your hopes up? It's just this very moping energy that you have because you're not going to get the thing you want. It's not going to work out for you. Of course, it doesn't feel good. And so that's the feeling you're going to carry through the entire experience. Versus a person who has their hopes up is going to feel excited. You know, when you have your hopes up, you're excited, you're kind of giddy, you have butterflies. You're going to feel like that through the experience. And it doesn't even matter what the outcome is, because either way, you've taken that first piece of your emotions and you've made them either all negative, or let's say it was the outcome didn't go your favor, you made them positive and then negative. So at least you had all of that positive feeling. So your net is way in the positive for when you get your hopes up. And there's many other reasons. And if you are interested, I am writing an entire book about it. But for the context of this episode, I think those reasons are the most relevant ones to when you have a goal and you're trying to protect yourself from that disappointment. Just know you're going to be disappointed either way, and you're robbing yourself of all of the good feelings. And the last thing I think is really interesting is that if you don't have hope through the process, it's going to be really hard to tap into hope when you're trying to pick yourself back up from failure, because you can't just decide, I'm going to turn on my hope now, right? You've been telling yourself and wiring your brain to not get your hopes up. But hope, as I talk about a lot, creates resilience. Hope is the thing that picks you back up. When you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you're willing to take one more step forward. And so if things don't work out, you actually need hope. You don't need a backup plan. So hope is really, really important, because with resilience, you can figure out what's next. You can put the pieces back together. But ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, if you are 100% committed, you don't need a backup plan, because there's no way that you won't figure it out. You might have to pivot and be flexible, and things might not look the way you originally thought they would. I actually just watched the Kurt Warner documentary. I loved it. Highly recommend. I won't give too much away, but essentially he was in college. He was playing football. He wanted to go professional. No one thought that he was going to get any professional looks. He had a brief encounter with a team that was going to sign him. He went for one day and he got cut. And that was it. Now that you're out of college and you didn't get drafted, you probably won't, right? That's the time period where people get drafted. So he got a job at a supermarket stocking shelves because he was trying to support his, I think at the time, his girlfriend and her 2 children. And he was really, really down. And this is a great example of, but Jacqueline, what if, I do the thing and I try and it just doesn't work? But instead of deciding, oh, well, it's over, I didn't make it, he was 100% committed. And so the first thing he did was he started playing arena football. So it looked a little bit different than his vision of being in the NFL, but it was professional football. So I think that's a great example of being flexible when needed. But he didn't give up hope on his dream of making it to the NFL. And he actually did so well in arena football that one of the coaches in the NFL scouted him. And he not only joined the team, but he was the backup quarterback. And the quarterback got hurt in the first game of the season. And not only did he do incredible that year, but they won the Super Bowl. And I think it's an amazing story for so many reasons, but he didn't give up hope. And so I think that a lot of people will like to come up with these stories of, but Jacqueline, what about this? And what about that? And, what if I try this and I don't get it, right? And it's the same thing with the book, right? Well, you've already pitched all the publishers and none of them want to acquire your book. That could happen. But there's always ways to pivot and be flexible, and there's always another route. It might not be the route that most people are going, right? It might not be I-95 that everyone's driving down. It might be some back roads that maybe some of them are dirt roads. They might not be the normal way of doing it, but it doesn't mean you can't get there. So that's a great example of why that 100% commitment is so important. And the other reason that I had a backup plan is because I thought it was responsible. So, I have this goal that's so important to me. It's important that I'm responsible with my goal, that I care for my goal. So that meant that it was important that I made a plan for if things didn't work so that I could honor this goal that's so important to me, my work, right? This book that I really believe the world needs. But what's so interesting about being responsible is that in doing so, I was actually doing a disservice to my work. One of the reasons that I want to get a traditional publishing deal is because I see this book in every Target in the United States, in airports, in all the common places where even the people that might not be reading all of the time and consuming every self-help book might stumble across and think, you know what? I'm always telling myself, don't get your hopes up. I really could use this book. They pick it up when they're about to board a flight and they want something to read. I just believe that this book can change the world in so many ways and really help people, not only to be happier, but also to accomplish so much more in their lives and live more satisfying, fulfilling, rewarding lives, which is what we get when we have hope. And in order to reach those people, I wanted to be in these high trafficked trade distribution areas. And the companies that have the most access to those are traditional publishing companies. And so it's really important to me that I get the traditional publishing deal. But if I make a backup plan, let's say like self-publishing, for example, and that's my backup plan, it's doing a huge disservice to the book. Because now, is it impossible to get in Target and airport bookstores if you're self-published? It's not impossible. I'm sure it's been done before, but it is a much more challenging uphill battle. And I would be so much better off if I just got the traditional publishing deal and had that network to get the book the opportunity to be in those stores. It doesn't mean by any means that by landing a traditional publishing deal, the book's automatically going to be in those stores. Absolutely not. The book is going to have to earn its place in those stores and sell the copies to command that. But it's at least giving it the opportunity. And so the most responsible thing I can do for my dreams is to give them the best chances at success. And they are not getting the best chances when I have a backup plan. Your backup plan is never ultimately the best thing for your dreams. It is, my dreams didn't work out, and now I'm trying to find something else that can make me feel okay about them. It's never going to feel good. And I think we're so afraid that, okay, but if they actually don't work out, now what? Now what? You're capable. You can figure it out. You've figured out plenty of times in the past when things didn't go your way. And I believe that if they don't work out, maybe something better is coming for you. And you probably can't work it out yourself. It's probably something that you're being guided to. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, as I like to say, that is beyond what we can figure out in our own minds. So stop trying. Believe in yourself. Of course, it doesn't mean like run yourself dry and have absolutely no money to pay your bills. And I think people take these the wrong way. Like if I'm pursuing a business goal, for example, then that means that I should just like be in debt and not be able to pay my mortgage and all these things. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't take risks, and it's not okay to get into debt or pursue the things that are important to you, right? It's whatever is right for you. But ultimately, being all in on your goal and ditching the backup plan doesn't mean that you're irresponsible in the sense that you're now going to become broke or homeless. You can take care of your basic needs and be all in on your goal. So I want you to think about that and ditch that attitude that you're not being responsible if you let go of the backup plan. And I want you to remember that the backup plan is holding you back from your full potential. And ultimately, the most gratifying thing that you can do for yourself is to reach your full potential. We all want that. We all have a desire to feel that we are really living up to what's possible for us. It never feels good to sell yourself short. So stop doing it. Stop using words and thinking thoughts that are actually moving you farther away from where you want to go. And instead, choose the words, choose the thoughts that are getting you closer to where you want to go. I hope this episode helped you to realize that the backup plan is hurting you more than it's helping you, and you can start to let go of it. And the next time you hear yourself saying, if it doesn't work out, just pause and say, you know what? It's going to work out because I'm committed to it, and I'm responsible, and I'm in control of my own outcomes in my life. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next episode.